Welcome to the Boxing Source Podcast, where we go over the latest news in boxing and react to all of the fights that happened in the past week. Now, let's go to our host, J.R. Bell. Yo, what's up? What's going on? What's good, everybody? That's right. We are here for August 3rd, 2025, the Boxing Source Podcast. That's right. We are here with the Boxing Source Podcast. Big thanks for everyone that's listening live, whether it's through YouTube or Rumble or whatever it is. And for those, either watching or listening to the replay, we appreciate that as well here on the Boxing Source. There's a number of things here that we got on the docket, that we're going to be talking about here in this edition of the Boxing Source Podcast. So hopefully, if you got any thing to chime in, if you're in the live chat or whatever it is, you'll be able to share your thoughts on it. And we'll, kind of like post what your thoughts are, whatever it is, and I'll be able to react to it. But also, get into a couple of the things with the fights that happened on Saturday night and a couple of the top stories here over the previous week here that, we're going to tackle, so to speak. But, first off, I wanted to go into, what was going on or what was going down here on Saturday night. I wanted to see if I could go through at least this particular fight card. They have, most of the results there on the fight card. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, at least on this particular screen here for the live on YouTube and on Rumble is I am going to show, the results here in this particular instance. All right. So, of course, you had the main event there, Oscar Duarte versus Kenneth Sims Jr. There within the super lightweight division. And they had it with Oscar Duarte there with the majority decision win over Kenneth Sims Jr. You also had there in the co-feature in the super lightweight division, Regis Prograis versus JoJo Diaz, with Regis Prograis getting a unanimous decision. Tristan Colcruth getting the win over Devontae Williams there by a second round stoppage, basically. And you had a couple of other fights there. Joshua Edwards versus Cayman Audi. Bakai Phillips was also there in action against Joseph Ricardo Cruz Brown. What kind of a name is that? That's some name right there. But if y'all were able to catch some of the stuff there that was on the zone, particularly with that Joshua Edwards fight there with Cayman Audi, I'm like, yo, I hope y'all didn't see that fight because I don't know. Just being real with y'all, I know we was talking about this upcoming fight here for Josh Edwards, him being very active here, in the heavyweight division and everything like that. That this one was going to be his fourth fight against a fighter that had 5 bouts already. But if you watch that fight and you seen Cayman Audi there in action, I'm like, come on, man, what are we doing here? Like, why are you even having this guy in the ring? It's crazy. He has 4 wins, 1 loss going into that fight against Joshua Edwards, but the way that he reacted to the punches being thrown by Joshua Edwards, that was absolutely crazy. It was absolutely insane. You know what I mean? So, with that being said, easy win for Joshua Edwards on that front. For him to get his 4th win, and he's already had 4 fights this year, pretty much 4 fights this year. And according to Coach Ronnie Shields, he's going to be active again, probably get another 2 fights here before the year is done. You also had Tristan Colcruth there in action there against Devontae Williams. I think that one that was kind of like a replacement fight or whatever it was, because you had Tristan Colcruth that was lined in the face. I think he was lined in the face of someone else there in that particular instance, right? But with that being said, he ended up, it was supposed to be a Hackett, man. That I felt like that was going to be a good fight. I thought that was going to be a good fight there between Tristan Colcruth and who was it? I forgot. Kareem Hackett. Would be really tough for Christian Colcruth, at least for me. But Hackett wasn't able to be in there for that particular bout, so you ended up having Colcruth, have another bout there against another opponent, replacement opponent. Then that guy didn't even answer the bell for the 3rd round. So I mean, hey, Tristan Colcruth at least gets the fight in, because sometimes that's the most important thing for a number of these fighters is to be able to get a fight in and a fight through. Even though their original opponent wasn't quite there. You know what I mean? So you do have that. Now, wanted to talk about the whole thing with, first off, the co-feature bout. You had Regis Prograis against JoJo Diaz right there in the super lightweight division. Of course, Regis Prograis, a former champion there at 140 pounds, lost the belt to Josh Taylor in a close bout. And of course, Josh Taylor ended up becoming the undisputed champion at 140 pounds. And you got JoJo Diaz, is a former, two division champion there in the lower weight classes. But, had been having a lot of struggles, you know what I'm saying? In the past few fights, like in the last six fights going into this one, he was 2-4, 2 wins and 4 losses in his last six fights, going up against Regis Prograis, who of course like lost to, as I said, Josh Taylor, lost to Devin Haney. We had also lost to Jack Catterall last year. So you had these two guys here. It was a crossroads fight of sorts, or they say it's a crossroads fight. I say, going into the bout, it was like a loser leaves town match. That's what I call it. I said, you know what? The loser of this fight, you might as well just, pack it in, pack it up, pack it in. It's a wrap. It's over. You're done. You feel me? But we saw the fight. I mean, we saw the fight, and it looked like a really, really good action fight. That was going on in there, man. Shout out to the folks in the live chat. Someone that already like posted his thoughts in reference to Tank Davis. I haven't even touched that topic yet, and they certainly had a lot of thoughts about Tank Davis. Shout out to with the Martha Prince there. Salute to you, man. Checking in here live for the Boxing Source podcast. Now, you just getting back to it here with that co-feature bout that was in Chicago there between Regis Prograis and JoJo Diaz. And, for me going into the fight, I like how they favored Regis Prograis, man. Even, with those losses that he had, to Devin Haney and to Jack Catterall before this bout, I thought he would have been way, way, way past the level of JoJo Diaz. But he let JoJo Diaz kind of like hang in this fight. You know what I'm saying? He let him hang around in this particular fight, and it made for a number of a number of the rounds to be really close there over the course of the bout there through 10 rounds. I mean, it was 10 round bout, whatever it is, and I thought it was very close, and it was a very very good action fight. So is that real quick there. The thing with Mara the Prince asks before I get one of my guests in here to check in, says Boxing Source, you think Keyshawn not hearing from Top Rank has more to do with their ESPN deal ending? It could be. It could be. I'll tell you this here real quick. After being in attendance for their bout or their fight card at the theater at Madison Square Garden, I did reach out to one of the matchmakers for Top Rank. Soon after, and I talked with them, during that fight week. But after that, fight week was done, I sent out a message to him, a couple of days after. As of right now, I haven't heard back from him, so I don't know what to make of that. I'll just say that right now. Hopefully, I got my guest in. Should be able to check in right quick to talk about the fights. It's my guy, of course. The Boxing Academic is in the building. What's going on, Boxing Academic?
Not much. How you doing tonight, Jr.?
All good, man. All good. There was a lot of action there in Chicago. You had some comments in reference to at least the co-feature about here to start off with between Regis Prograis and JoJo Diaz, and the scorecards read like a unanimous decision for Regis Prograis. Two scores of 96 and 94, and one score of 98 to 92. But live in action, it felt like it was close to that. Probably like the six rounds before that, two of the judges had. What did you think about this particular fight?
So I thought it was a good overall fight. I mean, both guys gave their all. Both guys fought within the fight that was within them, and you could tell they both wanted to win. There were a lot of close competitive rounds. I would say Prograce's jab allowed him to stay in the fight and get the nod, and even from I guess the judge that say he won every round but two of them.
Yeah, yeah,
It made him look invincible, which it depends on really what you like. But the jab, I mean, to be honest, I agree with that thought process, but the rounds were very close because Diaz was landing big shots, and then Prograis would get tired or get clipped, and then he would just get sort of overwhelmed at the end of the rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the jab kind of separates you. It allows you to kind of control traffic, control distance. It allows you to, like, we can see that Prograis' chin is compromised. Like everybody can kind of see that, to where he get touched with semi-hard shots. And I mean, he been in some tough fights. He been in some tough fights, and I'll say I was just proud of him this fight, because even in the first round or second round when he got hurt, um, he toughed through it. And some guys wouldn't do that. He continued to try to win, and he was in a bad way, and even just when he ever got caught with something big. And I ended up scoring the fight, because I could tell from the beginning that it was going to be one of those fights that you probably want to score, because it could potentially be controversial. So round one, I had Diaz, and I said Prograis winning until he got caught. And I think that's the first round when he got like hurt real bad or whatever. So he was winning the round until he got caught. Round two, I gave it to Prograis. Prograis essentially doing more work because of the jab. Round three, I gave it to Prograis. Prograis doing more work. And I asked myself, can he keep the pace? Because he known for like fizzling out. But the jab allows you to sort of keep the pace, and it allows you to like stay in front of the eight ball, or whatever people say.
Yeah.
Round four, I gave to Prograis. Prograis landing cleaner shots. He The action stopped because of the accidental headbutt, and it allowed Prograis to replenish his reserves, which that allowed him to finish strong in the round. Round
Mm-hmm.
five, I gave to Diaz. Diaz with the more cleaner shots won the round. Prograis getting hit too clean. Round six, I gave to Diaz. Diaz landed cleaner shots when Prograis can't keep up the offense. Hurt Prograis at the end of the round. Sometimes when the announcers say Prograis is hurt, isn't true, because Prograis got two left feet. So essentially, they kept saying, what's my guy name? Maddox, Chris
Yeah.
Maddox. He kept saying, Prograis hurt, Prograis hurt. Can you not see the dude? Whatever direction it was, he has a hard time stepping in that direction on balance. And so anytime he went in that direction, whether he had a shot or
Yep.
not, it
Yep.
like his feet would get like, he would lock his feet. And
Mm-hmm.
so that to me goes to a point that I would like to point out, that guys need to like have this situational training where they train and allow their bodies to do that, because that's really what separates the elite guys who can move around the ring and allow themselves to move smoothly in any direction to sort of evade shots. And then the second level to that, while you're moving, you can sort of do the dip or whatever, to just like really evade shots. Round seven, I gave to Prograis. Close round, but Regis work won him the round. Maddox keeps saying Prograis is rock. He just got bad balance a lot of the times. Round eight, I
Yeah.
gave to Diaz. Late work probably won the round. Prograis tied and let Diaz work equal. Prograis is tied and letting Diaz's work equal his with harder thrown punches. So at that point, round eight, Diaz was throwing the same amount of work as him. And then, if you have two guys with equal work, and then one guy throwing the harder shots, you got to give it to the guy who throwing the harder shots.
Yep.
Round nine, I gave to Diaz. Close round, leaning toward Diaz by the way he finished round. And then round 10, I gave to Prograis. So to me, I had a tie fight. So going either way and whatever, depending on what you like, to me, it was justified.
Yeah, I mean, I feel it was a close fight. Either way, you could have had it 6 rounds to four. For either one of the fighters there on that front. And the thing about it is that that judge that scored the fight like 8 rounds to two. I said initially that he gave a number of the close rounds there to Regis Prograis. I mean, maybe he just felt like the jab, as you were mentioning there, kind of like controlled the pace of the majority of those rounds, and he didn't really sway those power shots that Diaz was able to land on Regis Prograis to have him score that particular round for JoJo Diaz. So in that sense, what you ended up having was, like I said, 2 rounds to six to four, or two scores of 6 rounds to four, and then one score of 8 rounds to 2 in favor of Regis Prograis. But I mean, you kind of could give a lot more credit to JoJo Diaz and his effort over the course of that fight. And the doctor was absolutely crazy there because I thought when they had paused the beginning of the rounds there, when they were looking at JoJo Diaz in the cut, and the doctor was there right in front of JoJo Diaz, and he's like, "How many fingers am I holding up?" And
Two, two.
and two. And the doctor said, "You know what? Fuck it. Let him
Just go ahead. You got it wrong twice. Go ahead.
go ahead, man, go ahead." So when they had him go, had JoJo Diaz to the neutral corner, man, that had the crowd going and stuff like that. But that was absolutely funny right there to see that happen. But it ended up making it a really good action fight between those two fighters. Regis Prograis getting the win, but I felt like it was a really close fight. They're a good fight, and JoJo Diaz like giving that much of an effort, that kind of kept them relevant because as I was saying, leading into this fight, I thought this was going to be, as I call it, the loser leaves town match. The winner could continue his career, or the loser would, you just might as well say, "Yo, just wrap it up, B. Just wrap it up." You know what I'm saying? Or like how the OTX boxing had that pink slip match the other weekend, right? With my guy Maximus Garland there against Morgan Griggy, where Maximus Garland won, and he could be in another OTX fight card, and Morgan Griggy is just he might have to just be on another, like, I don't know, Red Out Boxing or something. I don't know. I can't come up with something for it, but I feel like this was like a loser leaves town match, and both of these fighters kind of like gave a good effort. Although I felt like Regis, the thing I see with Regis Prograis is he has like one gear, and he almost has like this mannerism, like he's just okay, I'll throw the jab, throw the jab again, flat footed. I'll move around a little bit, another jab, boom. Well, I'll come up with another combination, boom, boom. I'll get hit, boom. Still have the same expression, but you don't see him like turning it up to another gear. You know what I'm saying? And that type of mannerism could have him lose some fights that could be fairly close because it's not like he's going into a second gear. Like, I mean, you had his fight that he had against Josh Taylor, and Josh Taylor ended up getting a decision. Now, I feel like he won that fight against Josh Taylor, but like him, like having another gear, I just don't see it that much there with Regis Progress. So if he's going to be in the mix for another fight here later on down the line, especially if it's a guy that's at a higher level or something like that, then he might have to, do something else in order to, try to step it up against a number of the opponents that he could potentially face here down the line on that front.
Yeah, definitely. So one thing that I will say, I think this fight stole the show in terms of I'm just comparing it with the main fight. It
Mm,
stole the show
yeah,
because I wasn't as locked to the TV for the last fight.
last fight, yeah.
You
I
know,
was intrigued for that. You know what I mean? And I think it was more about the styles, between both of those fighters. There between Regis Prograis and JoJo Diaz. You knew with JoJo Diaz, it was going to be that come forward style, and he's going to be right in your face and try to get right in their face and things like that. But anytime that he is like at a distance, you do have that opportunity to work and land a jab and land a few shots while you're at a distance there. But once he's within range of you, then yeah, he's going to try to connect with as many of the power punches as he possibly can there. So he makes for good action fighter.
but it says something about his opponent if you let Regis Prograis outbox you. I ain't trying to be funny, but if
Yeah,
you
I
get
mean, I feel
outboxed
you.
by Regis
But
Prograis,
but I mean that's what I was talking about with Regis. He only has like that one mannerism or whatever it is, and just has that one gear. Like how we said there, what, a couple of weeks ago or so with Mario Barrios. Like, same case could be here for Regis Prograis. Only one gear, only one pace that he has, doesn't step it up, doesn't mix it up too much or whatever it is. So that's kind of like what made this particular fight be, good fight though. Even though Progress was at that one pace, when he was on doing that, like he really was tagging JoJo Diaz on that front. But outside of that, when JoJo Diaz was landing, he made the most out of it. So, props to both of those fighters there on that front. And, like I said, we're going to see more from both those guys later on down the line. And then, as you talked about there with the main event of the evening there, you had Oscar Duarte versus Kenneth Sims Jr. there within that same division, super lightweight. And I forgot if it was like a eliminator of sorts, but you had, of course, Oscar Duarte that had that knockout loss to Ryan Garcia like 2 years ago and something like that. And then you had Kenneth Sims Jr. there, of course, it's up and coming contender there that had his last bout in February against Kendo Castaneda. And I thought this one was. I mean, if it's an eliminator, I wouldn't have minded being an eliminator. Both of these guys, had about a couple of losses going into the bout. With Duarte with the record of 29-2-1 going into this bout, and Kenneth Sims Jr. with the record of 22-2-1. Right, and as you were saying there, as far as like this main event, it wasn't like the co-feature bout as far as like overall action is concerned, but you did have those two type of styles with Oscar Duarte with the come forward style and with Kenneth Sims. They're trying to box, outbox and outpoint them. A number of times he's seen there with Kenneth Sims that he was really trying to box from his back foot, had his back to the ropes a number of times there over the course of the fight, and just tried to I would say like outpoint Oscar Duarte in this particular instance. But for the judges, at least in this particular portion, they gave two of the judges gave it in favor of Oscar Duarte, and one judge had it 114-114, or 6 rounds to 6 there. So you had a score of 116-112, 115-113, and then 114-114. That would be in favor of Oscar Duarte by majority decision, basically, there for him to get that win. So these judges, I guess, felt like, and it was, I mean, two of the judges actually, right? The two judges that had it in favor of Oscar Duarte looks like they were the same judges that were in the Regis Prograis JoJo Diaz that scored the bout for Regis Prograis. So I mean that's interesting though, because the score, Mike Fitzgerald scored the bout 98-92 for Regis Prograis, but scored this bout 115-113 for Oscar Duarte. And the punch stats is crazy because they had it where both Oscar Duarte and Kenneth Sims Jr. landed the same amount of punches, 229, with Oscar Duarte throwing like a lot more, pretty much like 900 to 669 for Sims. But I mean, still, it was more about, okay, is it the aggressive style of Oscar Duarte, or if it's the precision, or more the precision there from Kenneth Sims that you put in favor here in this instance. And I think it's let me see here. I probably would be able to share this thing on the screen here if y'all are looking at it live either through YouTube or Rumble. I'm gonna see here if I could run it here real quick. Yeah, there it goes. All right, bet. So you see there total punches landed. It has like Kenneth Sims. I think he outlanded him in I think 7 of the 12 rounds here. But I'm gonna make sure here. I got him for 1. I got him for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Actually 6. And then they were even in one of those rounds. So it was like he outlanded them at 6, and Duarte outlanded them at 5, and then one it was basically even. So I guess that just made it kind of hard or tough to pretty much judge the rounds there, because like I mean you see like those first couple of rounds maybe they look like they were fairly even, but as I said, one of them judges like had it in favor of Oscar Duarte, while on the flip side he had it in favor of Regis Prograis and the style that Regis Prograis had. I don't know. That kind of like made it a pretty strange way to kind of judge this particular bout there. But Oscar Duarte getting the win over Kenneth Sims, and it was crazy for Kenneth Sims because Kenneth Sims, that was like his first, I think it was his first pro bout that he had in his hometown of Chicago. Like they said, like he ain't fight in Chicago since he was 16. Yo, that's crazy. So every fight that he had, like he ain't like build up, his record, having a number of fights over in Chicago or in the Chicago area or none of that. Nope. He had been fighting like everywhere else, like Philadelphia, Atlantic City, Miami, whatever, like Las Vegas, Newark, Orlando, like all that type of stuff. This was his first fight in his hometown of Chicago, and that's how they do him. That's how that's how he ain't get no home cooking there. Sometimes like how some folks say that some fighters get home cooking, but hey, for Kenneth Sims, he ain't get the home cooking, at least not this time around, man. So you got Oscar Duarte there with the win. I guess it was probably an eliminator of sorts because if it's for 12 rounds, it got to be some type of eliminator in that instance. So that's what they had, man. Academic, what did you think about that fight and how it was scored?
So every time I would like not necessarily drift off, or I would like think about something else and I would look at the screen.
Mm-hmm.
I would look at the screen, I'd be like, damn, is that Tim Bradley? But then after I come to, I don't know. I think I will say I didn't watch the fight as intently as I watched the other fight. But what I will say, the spirit of the fight, I felt like Duarte controlled more of the spirit of the fight most of the time.
Mm.
And, there were times where Sims landed a few shots and got off some stuff clean and looked good with it. But it was a lot of times where he was just fighting just to keep the dude off of him. Like
Mm.
he wasn't controlling him in a sense. He was just like, how somebody gets scared and throw their arms real fast like 3 or 4 times. It's just like he was doing that. I ain't
Yeah.
saying he was scared. I'm nowhere implying that he was scared, like because he was fighting. But I'm just saying I don't feel the times when I was looking up and watching the fight, he was controlling the action of the fight. It felt like Duarte was more so controlling him, and he was just trying to like survive the encounter in a sense. And the few times where he did control it and was looking slick and looking good and stuff, it was less times than Duarte was landing shots and throwing big shots and essentially moving him and making him cover up against the ropes or sit down on the ropes. It's just a lot of stuff that Duarte was essentially just making him do in a sense what he wanted him to do. And he was just trying to, I'm not saying he was trying to survive, but he was trying to get past the encounter in a sense.
Mm. So you pretty much like was saying for Duarte for the majority of the fight, he was more of the like he controlled the pace of the fight more, or he kind of made it look like he was controlling the pace of the fight.
Yeah, it looked like if you had to say who implemented their game plan better, I would say Duarte.
Mm.
Like I get it, Sims is boxing, but Sims didn't, in my opinion, didn't outbox him. He like didn't. It was in him trying to outbox him. It was too close to where Duarte was doing what he wanted to do. But when Duarte was doing what he wanted to do, it looked like he was implementing what he wanted to do.
Mm. It was more of like with Duarte, like he was able to implement his game plan better off than what Kenneth Sims was doing because with Kenneth Sims doing the boxing, it wasn't like we were talking about with the co-feature bout. Regis Prograis looked like he was controlling the pace of the fight with the jab and really tagging JoJo Diaz in that one. But on the flip side, with Kenneth Sims against Oscar Duarte, it almost looked like that was more of a defensive type of jab thing that he was doing.
And that is a great point because if you said two of the judges had just judged that fight and then they went into this fight,
Mm-hmm.
watching Regis Prograis and how he controlled it with the jab and essentially led the story and it was like JoJo Diaz went with how Regis Prograis did or did not come on. And then now if you compare that, like you literally right next, you're comparing it to Sims and you're like, well, he ain't doing the same thing that I just saw when the boxer, was essentially outboxing a puncher or whatever.
Puncher, yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, so that probably doomed him. Them watching the last fight and seeing how the boxer was like outboxing the guy.
yeah. I think that's how he kind of like approached it. Was like he seen, what Regis Prograis was able to do there, against JoJo Diaz and kind of like control it and pretty much cause like the cuts that happened, on JoJo Diaz. Well, on the flip side there with Kenneth Sims, like he wasn't able to stop, I guess, or either stop the momentum there from Oscar Duarte or make it to be like he was in favor or had the pace of the fight going in his favor in there. Now I know like the commentators like at the end of the fight were saying like, hey, both fighters were able to execute what they needed to execute, but it just looked like, Duarte was doing a better job of what, he was doing in comparison to Kenneth Sims. But, from a judge's perspective, when, you're at one side of the ring and you see Kenneth Sims, going to the ropes pretty much often, there it almost would look like, you would think that Oscar Duarte is controlling the pace of the fight there over the course of the 12 rounds. So I think that, as I was saying, there were two of the judges that, also had been the judge for the previous fight. I guess they felt like, the thing with Duarte, he was able to do what he needed to do much better than, say, as JoJo Diaz over the course of those 10 rounds that happened between Regis Prograis and JoJo Diaz. So, for that being said, I think with Duarte, he's able to get this win. I hadn't necessarily checked what was going on as far as like the overall rankings there within that particular division. If Oscar Duarte is like in the mix there within some of these rankings, I have to check. I mean, I don't see. Yeah, I'm like looking at him right now, and okay, they currently have him at number 5. I think. Wait, I have to check for sure. In the WBA rankings, they had him at number 5 in the WBA as of last month, but they had recently released the rankings there for the WBA. So let me see here. I'm gonna go ahead and try to confirm that. They had Kenneth Sims actually. Yeah, this had to be an limiter. Kenneth Sims Jr. was at number 4, and Oscar Duarte was at number 5. So with Duarte getting this win, he might be able to get to maybe above Alberto Puello at number 3, or against or over Nestor Neri or something like that there at number 2, because Andy Hirioka is the mandatory challenger for Gary Antoine Russell. So we got to see if they're going to have Duarte up there at number 3, but we're going to have to wait until the end of this month to know for sure, because they just recently released those rankings there in the WBA. You know what I'm saying? So that that's what they got there on that front. Maybe they'll have Duarte in a position to fight. Maybe what was it, Nestor Neri, who's rated at number 2, because Pollo, they don't know if they're going to have Pollo in a rematch there for that WBC belt with Super and Matias, or they have him against someone like I don't know, maybe who would it be like? Nah, I don't think it would be like a Jermaine Ortiz or something like that. But it might be against like Isaac Cruz. If they have Alberto Puello versus Isaac Cruz, maybe, then he wouldn't really be a factor in the WBA rankings. So with Oscar Duarte, he might have a shot to climb up the rankings here once again with another fight later on down the line. But on the flip side, with Kenneth Sims Jr., as I was mentioning before, there with the whole thing with Regis Prograis getting a win over JoJo Diaz, you might have Kenneth Sims versus Regis Prograis or something like that. You know what I mean? Shout out to Captain DGAF there in the building, man. Yeah, he said like Sims was out there with like one eye. Yeah, I don't know. It was like crazy out there. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, there were like two good fights there for the co-feature and the main event out there in Chicago. But that co-feature pretty much like, as he was saying, like stole the show on that front. So, I mean, it was good event overall there in Chicago. I had mentioned earlier here at the start with one of the fights that happened. You had what was it? Joshua Edwards. They're in a bout against Cayman Audi, and if y'all watched that fight live on the zone, that was absolutely crazy. I mean, the guy Cayman Audi was like 4-1. I don't know who. I'm just being honest with you. I don't know who the 4 guys that he fought that he beat, man, because he did not look like he belonged in any type of ring going in there against Joshua Edwards. That was funny. It was absolutely funny watching that fight. Oh man. but yeah, that was the whole thing with that card there for August 2nd. We got some fights that's coming up on August 9th, or I think August 8th and August 9th. But I mean, it's going to be a little bit of a slow period here for August, man. I mean, we know what could have happened there on August 16th, but yeah, that's like out the window. We don't even know if there's going to be something for October when it comes to that main event that was supposed to happen on August 16th. You had talked with the trainer there for Lamont Rhodes Jr. Of course, his father Lamont Rhodes Sr. And he said, yeah, I mean they haven't necessarily got any type of update with that yet. So, we gotta wait it out, so to speak. I mean, they were in the gym. They were out there in close to Orlando, Florida. Of course, they were the Pro Box gyms that's out there, around Plant City, Florida, and stuff like that. But once the whole thing, as far as like the August 16th was out the window, then they just said, you know what, we coming back up to the DC area. And now with Lamont Rhodes Sr., he has a couple of fights that he has to get ready for with, of course, his other son there, Jordan Roach, and also with Ben Johnson as part of a fight card that's coming up on Friday, September 5th in Washington, D.C. That's going to be on Pro Box. So y'all, the thing there with that. We got my guy Joe in the building. It says that he might have some news on Osvari or David Morrell Jr.'s new trainer. Man, I hope it ain't what I think it is. I hope it ain't who I think it is. Because I'm gonna tell you something. If it's the guy that, well, first of all, I saw him out there for out there in New York when they did have David Morrell Jr.'s last fight there at the what is that, the Louis Armstrong Stadium there in Queens. This particular trainer trained a well-known fighter in the middleweight division in the past, and that particular well-known fighter I was not a fan of at all. So if it's that particular trainer, oh my god, oh boy. So yeah. So let me see here. Hold on. I'm gonna see here. I'm checking here. If it's oh god. I read the message. Yep. It's that guy. Yep, it's that guy. So Joe Sanchez. Oh man. Hey, y'all know that David Morrell Jr. is slated to face Callum Smith. I think it's for the interim WBO title. They're at light heavyweight. All I'm gonna say is good luck to David Morrell Jr. I'm gonna just say that. Listen, if he didn't want to really patch up some things as far as like his defense and all that type of stuff, oh my god, good luck facing the Callum Smith, buddy. Like if you thought that the whole thing with your last fight was something, Callum Smith, ooh, it might not be good. Hey, hopefully, hey, best of luck to him. He's gonna be ending up with Abel Sanchez. Best of luck to him on that front. So is what it is on that. All right, next up, man. Wanted to talk about this whole thing as far as like news outside, boxing circles, of course. Like I said, it's been that you only had that whole fight card that was there in Chicago. There isn't really much action, at least for next week. Did have like a whole thing with a schedule of sorts there when because I'm part of a pick'em league. But there's like action that's supposed to be scheduled for what is it, August 8th and August 9th. But as I mentioned before, with the whole thing with August 16th being basically out the window, all you got is what's going on in Saudi Arabia. Moses Atama versus Dylan White, that fight card. You're gonna have a couple of other fights that's gonna be on that card as well to look out for. I think like Ray Ford is gonna be in action. He's supposed to face Anthony Kakachi, but Anthony Kakachi is like out of that one. So Ray Ford is going to be facing Abraham Nova on that fight card on August 16th. You know what I mean? So yeah. But you had some comments from a Timothy Bradley. Okay, of course, Timothy Bradley. He's a recent International Hall of Fame International Boxing Hall of Fame inductee, um, has had a lot of takes on a lot of things, whether it was on ESPN or on his recently started channel. Okay, now he's had some select comments about a Gervonta Tank Davis in the past, but recently he is looking like he's having a change of heart when it comes to Tank Davis. Says that Tank Davis, you got to look at his resume, man. And look at him. I mean, look at the fighters that he's fought, and look what they're doing right now. I mean, look at it. I don't know if he said it like that, but he brought up the whole thing with Rolando Romero being a world champion now. He talks about Isak Cruz, who won a world championship himself. You had Mario Barrios, who is the WBC welterweight champion, although a lot of people were disappointed in his performance against Manny Pacquiao. You had Leo Santa Cruz there, that is a multi-division champion. You know, so he kind of went over his resume and talk about, I guess, your Yorkis Gamboa or Jose Pedraza, that was a multi-division champion himself. You know, hey, and it looked like he had a change of heart. Come on, man. Oh man, you know what I mean? Oh jeez. It says Tim must be stopped. Yeah, Captain. This is the same Tim Bradley that said what he said about Tank after his fight against Lamont Rose Jr. on March 1st. Yeah. So yeah, that's Tim Bradley for y'all. But now he's saying, hey, Tank Davis, oh man, look at him. Oh, you got to put him in the Hall of Fame. Look at him. If he retired right now, he'd be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, but I mean, you have some people that do talk about what Tank Davis has done in his professional career, and it's more about the fighters that he's fought against. Now, the thing about it is with Tank Davis, and of course, I followed Tank Davis. I talked with them, and a couple of times or a couple of instances in asking questions and stuff like that, in press conferences and things like that. Y'all know how all know that I've been on with his trainers there over at Upton Gym and things like that. Um, you go over his career, yeah, he may have notable names on there, and the thing about it is like, is the accolades there for Tank Davis? That's the thing about it. Are the accolades there for Tank Davis, at least this at this particular point of his career, to where you can say, hey, he is valid to be in the Hall of Fame? He has 31 professional fights right now. 31. 30 of those wins, one draw. 28 wins by way of knockout, one of the highest knockout ratios currently there in the sport of boxing. A number of people place him in within the the top 10 pound for pound and stuff like that. But thing about it is, has he been able to unify in the division that he's won a world title in? That's the thing about it. Has he been able to, he's currently what, the WBA champion at lightweight. He was, the IBF super featherweight champion, beforehand. So, and he also, won the title there at what, super lightweight with his win over Mario Barrios, that WBA title that Mario Barrios had at 140 pounds. You know what I mean? But does he have, like, as Captain pretty much said right here, right? He needs that legacy fight. You know what I mean? Shout out to Dante's Boxing Talk here in the live chat. He says, thinks Tim be trolling. Hey, sometimes he be doing that. Sometimes he will do that. He will make these comments that'll be crazy and off the wall. You know what I'm saying? Like how he said, hey man, I don't know, man. You know, I like Teal. I think, man, I think Teal could get Boots. I think he could win against Boots. You know, I mean, you look at his skill set. I think he could beat Boots or something. I don't know how he sounds sometimes, but that I think that was wild. But yeah, back to what Captain was saying. Yeah, Tank needs that legacy fight, and of course, a lot of people are talking about Tank Davis and Shakur Stevenson. That should be the fight. But up to this point, we haven't had it. Academic, you got something on this topic here, real quick?
Yeah, I'm just I always want to see another person's point of view. So with that being said, how many defenses does Tank have of said many belts he has gotten over the years? How many defenses has he made?
So with the IBF Super Featherweight Championship, he made one successful defense of it against Liam Walsh. And then in the next bout against Francisco Fonseca, it was vacated because he was overweight. Okay. Um, of course, there with the bout against Mario Barrios, that was one fight there at 140 pounds, or the super lightweight division, and then he went down to lightweight. And in lightweight, what he won the bout against I think it was Rolly, where he got the WBA title. So he's had those defenses there from that particular point. But I have to confirm, because looking at BoxRec don't really recognize the WBA there. So so I probably have to go elsewhere to confirm that, as far as like how many defenses of that WBA title that Tank Davis has.
But nothing special. So he needs a legacy fight.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing about it. I mean, you have you see it that someone saying like he was trying to pursue that fight with Vasily Lomachenko last year. But that didn't necessarily come to fruition. As you see that Lomachenko ended up wrapping it up, so to speak, right? So now it's basically, okay, who is going to be out there for him to face that says, okay, that's a legacy fight. Everyone's saying this now, the current WBC champion at lightweight, Shakur Stevenson. So we got to see like how that's going to end up being. As far as like the lightweight title, he won the lightweight title against Yuriorkis Gamboa actually in 2019, and he's had like, what is it, one, two, three, four, five, six defenses of that WBA title there. So that's the thing about it. He said, yeah, he was joking about Tio. Yeah, I mean, hey, sometimes some people don't know, but I think the whole thing with Tim Bradley and that Teofimo Lopez thing with Boots Ennis, he was thrown out of the lure of sorts, because you know Top Rank has a good amount of feelings about Teofimo Lopez, and that they may want to get handle Teofimo Lopez for his actions in the past. So that's why they had that brought up the whole thing with Boots Ennis initially last year, because he was turning down multiple fights. So here it is. Yeah. But that's the thing. Hold on. So what he said, he boxed Gamboa too. You talk about Tank, I guess it is there, Jose Barrera. But I mean, yeah, he's had those multiple defenses of the WBA lightweight title. As of right now, given the whole thing with the draw with Lamont Roach Jr., a lot of people were thinking, hey, he's going to have a rematch with Lamont Roach. But as it was mentioned there, August 16th, it looked like it was going to be in T-Mobile Arena. That isn't necessarily happening. Looks like they're seeing if they're going to push whenever Tank's going to fight until October at the very least. You got to see what's going on. What's going on outside the ring. Therefore, Tank Davis, and then once that gets situated and settled and straightened out, then we're going to see more news as far as like Tank Davis and what's going to end up happening next. Some people are talking about the whole thing between Tank Davis and Jake Paul. Man, I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that doesn't happen next. I know the whole thing with the draw, you don't necessarily have to have an immediate rematch with the draw result, but like, I mean, I would say, at least for me, well, I'm biased. Okay. I want to see the rematch. And if there ain't going to be a rematch, at least try to have something here with Shakur Stevenson, especially now since Shakur Stevenson defended the WBC lightweight title against a mandatory challenger. He doesn't have to worry about any type of mandatory challenge here for a year. So if there's any time to do it, now's the time to do it. You know what I mean? It said, yeah, that's the Riggy belt though. People not gonna accept that for real. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the WBA, y'all know how the sanction bodies go sometimes, but the WBA usually has something when it comes to the title, whether it's like a regular title or the super title. And sometimes with the super title, you get a status with that. Like it's either you unify or you're able to successfully defend the lightweight title for a certain amount of fights. So if they have some type of rule where or some type of thing where they say, hey, okay, Tank Davis defended this title this amount of times, or at least it's been what, like at least 5 times. You know what I mean? But I don't know because after the whole thing with the super title, now I don't know if they're gonna make that designation be there for Tank Davis here in this particular instance. You know what I mean? Yeah. See, there you go. Like, and there were defenses, but it had Loma as the WBA champion because he was, at one time the super champion at one point. But when he lost him, that was, basically it. You know what I mean? And so Lomachenko ended up when he lost those titles, then that was basically it or whatever it was, and then he ended up winning the IBF belt from George Kambosos, and from that point, after holding the IBF title for some time, he ended up relinquishing it when he retired. That's why you got your bro as the new champion there in the IBF, Ray Murataya as the IBF champion right now. So that's what you got going on or going down at this point when it comes to the lightweight division. But with like I said, with Tim Bradley, saying what he is saying about Tank Davis, it's I don't know if it's a change of heart or he's just saying something, like I said, oh man, that Tank Davis or something, it's crazy stuff, man. But we like I said, we still have to see what's up with Tank Davis here within the next couple of weeks or so. As I mentioned there with Lamont Roach Jr., he's pretty much like back, around the DC area and stuff like that. And we got to see what would be the next move for him because we had the whole thing. You had the performance there against Tank Davis. A number of people felt like he should have won that fight against Tank Davis there, and of course a whole little controversy with Tank voluntarily taking the knee too. So I mean, it is what it is with that. So we got to see what happens here within the next couple of weeks down the line on that front. Now, other thing I wanted to talk about here was about the former WBO champion there at 135 pounds, Keyshawn Davis. We all know about what happened for his supposed fight that was going to have against Edwin De Los Santos. Ended up over 4 pounds overweight in Norfolk. And with that being said, the fight got nixed, shut down. So no fight. It's been a while since anyone has heard from Keyshawn Davis, not only for him being overweight, but also the whole little incident that happened in the locker room with Keyshawn Davis and his brother there, Keon Davis, and Nahir Albright, after Nahir Albright had the decision win over Kelvin Davis at the Scope Arena in Norfolk. So, Keyshawn Davis, went on video and hold up real quick, though. Hold on. Let me see here. I want to see Lamont Rhodes Jr. versus Gary Russell Jr. I know one fighter that definitely wants that fight. I'll just say that. Okay. So hey, listen. Hey, you might if anything, if the stuff with Tank Davis falls apart, be on the lookout. You might see something. You might see something. Even though Lamont Rhodes Jr. kind of like has dismissed it a whole bunch of times, Mr. Gary's like, yeah. It's like, yeah, he wants that. He wants that. But like I said, we gotta wait on what happens here over the next, I would say, couple weeks or a month or so and see what goes down because I feel like there's got to be something on the schedule for October because if not, for at least for the PBC part, you might have something here for September. Hopefully, they got some announced for that, but it ain't looking all too good as far as like the whole boxing schedule in general. All right, back to the whole thing with Keyshawn Davis, right? Um, we kind of like put out like an apology of sorts, about the whole thing with him being overweight, and then the whole thing with this incident with Nahir Albright, and I'm like, well, the Albright situation, Albright kind of like dismissed it a little bit, immediately afterwards. But it's something where he still said, hey, either I could fight Kelvin again or I could fight Keyshawn again. It don't matter to him. But with Keyshawn Davis, he's the one that was the WBO lightweight champion. He was the one that was on the high after defeating Dennis Marincek in New York City for that WBO lightweight title. And then the next fight, he isn't able to make weight against Edwin De Los Santos. Now, from my perspective, given how he looked against Dennis Marincek after winning that title, he should have just went up to super lightweight. I'm telling you, he should have just went up to super lightweight. I mean, hey, you had instances like what is it? Like Shakur Stevenson when he won the WBO featherweight title, he went up to super featherweight, and then even after he unified as super featherweight, his next bout he was overweight. So it's like, hey, it's only a certain amount of time. If you could make weight, if you can't make weight, then try to see if you could get the best opportunity that you could get while you're at the weight, and then after that, just make the decision that you're going to move up. But I just felt like at the time with what Top Rank had planned for him, and he was just following the plan. Him winning that title, he just really wanted to see if he could defend that title in his hometown of Norfolk, Virginia. But the weight just couldn't. He just couldn't get the weight down. But that happens at times here. But that, and then the whole thing with the Nahir Albright situation, that was absolutely crazy. Yeah, I wasn't backstage or the locker room during that time because we had the Abdullah Mason thing going down. You know what I mean? So that was that. So now looks like he's saying he don't know if he's gonna fight again, and he's like waiting it out or whatever. And I think he has something here close to the beginning of the podcast where someone like asked a question there. That was Marta Prince, right? And he said, do you think Keyshawn Davis, not hearing from Top Rank, has more to do with their ESPN deal ending? Possible. But here's the other thing, though. If they were going to have him be like one of those key guys there on the ESPN, I can understand that. But that still doesn't prevent Top Rank from making fights like outside of it being under Top Rank Incorporated. Like we've seen, like for example, they with Teofimo Lopez. Like they have the rights to Teofimo Lopez, or the promotional rights to Teofimo Lopez, and he was able to be part of that May card there to defend that WBO super lightweight title, right, against Arnold Barbosa Jr. So they represented Teofimo Lopez in that instance, and they've done that with other fighters in the past over the past year and a half, where they pretty much like either promote or co-promote a fighter. Like for example, Tyson Fury, right? Where they could have them fight in these other fight cards and basically represent them. So you could have the same thing here with Keyshawn Davis. I say, how about this? If they don't necessarily have something put together, someone should make a phone call to Mr. Turkey Al Sheik or whatever it is. And if Keyshawn Davis is really there at 140 pounds, then they should have a fight. Hey, I don't know what they do. You could call Turkey. You could call my guy Gustavo Olivieri, the president of the World Boxing Organization. And even though he had recently had his belt stripped at 135, he's there at 140 pounds. Okay, how about this? Keyshawn Davis against the WBO super lightweight champion Teofimo Lopez. Keyshawn's been calling for that fight for about 2 years. Why not make it now? You know what I mean? So what's going on? All right, so yeah, what Captain says the tank fight was holding him at 135 pounds. Yeah, because remember, like last year, I think it was at the end of his Keyshawn's fight last year, he was talking about that he wanted that tank fight. So there have been instances where he's talked about fighting Tank Davis at 135 pounds, but yeah, as I said, if you can't like keep that weight down, then it is what it is. Shout out to my guy Smitty there in the building. You know what I'm saying? Y'all check out Smitty. They're the elephant in the room. Had a recent conversation there with Gary Antoine Russell there, so that should be on there through his YouTube channel or whatnot. So y'all check that out. But yeah, with Keyshawn Davis, man, I mean, I don't know what would be next for him. If he's there 140 pounds, then that's that. Because you got him being, I think it's ring ambassador. I think he's representing the ring or whatever it is. And I did see Keyshawn Davis, of course, with his brothers. He was there at the last ring event, Ring 3, over in Queens. So, hey, like I said, if you could have Teofimo Lopez in one of your events, and you got Keyshawn Davis as a ring ambassador or ring representative, why not go ahead and make that fight? You know what I mean? Shout out to L Dub in the building, man. I might have something there to talk about with L Dub as well. A boxing academic. The thing with Keyshawn Davis, like, if I don't know if you're able to hear like what he was talking about, but I kind of like explained it. What do you think about Keyshawn Davis in his current situation, if anything?
I don't have any real comments on it.
No comment.
No comment. No comment. I hope we could deliver when the time come again. That's all. We just people were behind him, and some people get the luxury of being able to be overweight, and they can pay their way out of it. They can, you know,
Hmm.
they have a lot of things going behind them that allows them to get a tap on the wrist for doing that. But other guys like him, you don't have that same luxury. So especially when the guy was drained and he said he wasn't trying to fight you, knowing that you're bigger and stuff. I mean, it's just the circumstances. Just hope the next time the opportunity come that he ready and he can make the weight.
Yeah. Now, yeah, the thing with the Edwin De Los Santos situation, that was kind of interesting, though. Of course, like being in that area live and watching the whole thing with the weigh in and having Keyshawn Davis be over 4 pounds overweight, and Edwin De Los Santos, I guess props to Edwin De Los Santos. He still was about that action because he still wanted that opportunity. He still wanted to have the chance to become the WBO lightweight champion. But Samson Lukowicz said, "Nah, that ain't cool. Whatever it is or whatever." So, and with that being said, that's what made Edwin De Los Santos say, "You know what, Samson Boxing, yeah, I'm cool with Samson Boxing." So he's not with Samson Lukowicz anymore on that front. Shout out to L Dub Boxing plug here in the building. He says Gary Antonio Russell will be back on August 15th. That should be Friday, August 15th. I think that's a Pro Box card. I forgot which one it is. I'm gonna look that up real quick there because I know Pro Box got a fight card on August 15th. He might be on that. So I'm going to see here if I can look that up real quick. But yeah, I was talking about the thing there with Keyshawn Davis, right? So with Keyshawn Davis, he had the whole thing where his momentum, I thought he had momentum was through the roof from last year. He had 3 fights last year. One of them was like in Newark, and he was like part of that Shakur Stevenson, Artem Haratunian joint. And then after that, he had headlined in his hometown of Norfolk, Virginia. Of course, had the second round stoppage win. So that put him in a position to fight for and then win the WBO lightweight title when he had the stoppage victory over Dennis Berinchek at the theater at Madison Square Garden. So, like, his momentum was basically at an all-time high for him. So, with Top Rank having those plans, I was talking with Carl Moretti, of course, and talking with the matchmaker there, Brad Goodman. They were like, "Hey, we're building up Keyshawn Davis. We're seeing the popularity that he's getting in there, he's gaining here. So we'll put him in a position to fight for and, as he said, win a lightweight title. And then after that, we'll see if we could put him back at Norfolk to defend that lightweight title." So they were basically there according to plan. It was just that he just couldn't keep that weight down. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, so that was the thing. You said yeah, Antonio like August, not August 16th, August 15th. So the thing with August 15th, that's a Friday there. So you're gonna have at least a fight card, at least for Pro Box on Friday. They got what is it, Yakubov versus William Foster there on the main event at the Pro Box Event Center in Florida, right? And then what you got what is it? Starling Castillo versus Shanard Bunches in the co-feature. So you could have Gary Antonio Russell on that Pro Box fight card. So I gotta, check that out, make sure, see if they got the opponent there lined up for him on that front. But yeah, with Keyshawn, if he's going to continue his career and it's going to be at 140 pounds, you have, as a lot of people know, that super lightweight division is stacked right now. Got a lot of action right now. You know what I'm saying? So you could put Keyshawn Davis in a number of those with those contenders that are out there. I don't know if they'll put him in there with a world champion unless if it's Teofimo Lopez. Like I said, you're going to have a grudge match with him and Teofimo Lopez. You might as well have it now. How about that? But with that being said, we got to see what could be next out there on the horizon for Keyshawn Davis if he's looking to, continue his career at least, or start it off there at the 140-pound division. So that's all I'm looking at here in the the next few weeks or something like that, if they could set something up, because everyone knows about the fight card for Ring 4 on November 22nd, but they could still have something, in the works for maybe December or January or something like that, where Keyshawn Davis could be involved in that in a sense. Because with Top Rank, at least as of right now, we really don't know what's up with him. I know that Bob Arum said that, look, we got, deals in the works. We'll work with networks. We'll work with streaming platforms and all of that. But you got to understand something. We have to rebuild. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, he's basically like a mouthpiece of sorts or whatever it is, because he has his son-in-law really running the show at Top Rank. Y'all see Bob Arum, okay, but y'all don't see Todd DeBow. Y'all see Carl Moretti, but y'all don't see Todd DeBow. Y'all see Bruce Trampler. Y'all see Brad Goodman, but y'all don't see Todd DeBow. I'm just saying, it's kind of like a reason for that, and that reason is really affecting Top Rank at this current juncture. So that I think that unless they shore that up and shore that up pretty soon, you might have some problems there with Top Rank. Just to be honest with y'all, y'all. But with that being said, I pretty much did a whole rundown of what went down this weekend, and a couple of the top stories here for the week. The only other thing I would probably talk about is a lot of people that had been anticipating if they would have an announcement for Jerome Boots in his first fight at 154 pounds. They haven't necessarily announced that yet. And a number of the fighters that have been suggested as an opponent for Boots Ennis isn't necessarily likely. Okay. One, because they ain't necessarily tied to Matchroom Boxing like that. And two, it really isn't. I don't think the timing is necessarily right for it. So whenever they do make that announcement, and if it's a particular fighter that I've kind of talked about with L Dub, or what I'm saying, my guy L Dub on it, a number of people may likely be very disappointed in that. But the thing about it is not everybody is held up to the same standard when they move up in weight. I'll just put it that way, at least for now. All right. So with that being said, that's what I got in reference to this instance of the Boxing Source podcast. Shout out to the Boxing Academic here for joining in live as panelists. Shout out to everyone that's listening live, through YouTube or through Rumble. Say to support, hit the like button, hit the share button here if you enjoy the content, and we'll get back at it here at least for the midweek report on Wednesday, and then of course the next edition of the Boxing Source podcast next Sunday. We'll see if we'll work on getting a couple more interviews scheduled for the week. I might have Coach Bob Santos on for tomorrow. I don't know if it's going to be live, but we're trying to set up for Coach Bob Santos for tomorrow, because I've been waiting to hear from Coach Bob Santos about that fight with Mario Barrios against Manny Pacquiao, because man, that shouldn't have happened. That shouldn't have happened at all there. But with that being said, that is it for this edition of the Boxing Source podcast. Once again, I thank everyone for listening in, and I will catch y'all later. Peace out.